Okay, good afternoon. Thanks for joining us today. I am Sandra with Maryland Crime Victims Resource Center. Every month, we kind of talk about topics that we think would be useful to the community as far as how we can help them and also introduce some of our partners. Um, Today, we are talking about scams and internet fraud. I think that it has been growing, with the use of technology. There are so many different ways for people to kind of take advantage of others. And it's quite unfortunate, but we are hoping to bring in some different aspects of what we can do to kind of help you. So before we get too far into it, I wanted to introduce everyone. We go around robin and you can introduce yourselves, and I'll start with Blanche.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Blanche Hampton. I'm a senior staff attorney with Maryland Crime Victims Resource Center. I represent victims of all types of crimes in Baltimore, Carroll, and Howard counties. I've been with MCVRC for about 6.5 years, and I assist victims in navigating the criminal justice system and help to ensure that their rights are represented and enforced throughout the trial process. So I'm happy to be here to bring awareness to this very important topic, and I'm looking forward to an informative session.
Thanks, Blanche. Veronica?
Good afternoon. I am Veronica Pinheiro. I'm the fraud manager with Andrews Federal Credit Union. I've been with Andrews for almost 20 years at this point, so have definitely seen a lot of the fraud schemes in the financial world. And I've seen the ebb and flow of that. And in general, just guide my team as they guide account holders, members with fraud that they may fall victim to.
Thanks, Veronica. And Kimberly.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Kimberly Eubanks, and I'm with Andrews Federal Credit Union. I am a business relationship officer. So essentially what that does is I bring banking into the community. I provide financial education, and I'm also a certified financial counselor. Before I got into my role as bringing banking to the community, I started out my career in the branches. So I've seen a lot of fraud, helping our members try to resolve how to come back from falling victim.
Thanks so much, Kimberly. So I guess let's talk about what types of scams and frauds are trending right now. I feel like that has been changing a lot with the use of technology.
Yes. So as I said, there's a lot of ebb and flow to a lot of these schemes. Right now, I would say there's probably 2 or 3 that are top of the list at the moment. One of those being phishing texts, also known as smishing. Even I've got them. I don't think anyone is, been able to avoid these. So you may see text messages that appear to be from EasyPass or MVA. Other ones may be job recruiter related. Even random messages that say, "Hi, how are you? Are you free tomorrow?" All of those, come in. A lot of them use a lot of urgent language to get you to act quickly, whether that's pay a fine or click on a link, things of that nature. Even the ones that are seemingly harmless, like, "Hi, are you free tomorrow?" That maybe it's a wrong number. As soon as you engage, because you may want to ask, "Who is this?" They initiate a conversation and try to befriend you and, ultimately get you to send money or collect personal information from you.
That is so interesting that you said that, because I do definitely feel like back in the day, it was like, send me 500 million, whatever, like back, you'd get like an email back in the day. And nowadays you're so right. Cause I got some of those toll things. And it was like texted to me, and I'm like, how did they, what? And it was from Virginia, which I don't live in Virginia. I live in Maryland. And so I remember calling like the Dulles Tollway or something or other. And she was like, "Yeah, no, we've been getting that a lot lately." So yeah. I mean, I'm not quick to, pay on my phone.
Yeah. And with,
definitely.
Yeah. And with the uptick with, artificial intelligence and chat GPT and things like that, even if, this is coming from out of the country, because a lot of times, you may notice that the phone number that shows up looks like it's an overseas type phone number. It's not a traditional, phone number format that we would use here in the US. That it's helping people, create the message itself with correct grammar and things of that nature to sort of make it sound and look more legitimate. And again, anytime there's urgent language used that says, things, and I'm taking this from ones I've received, it says, this is your last opportunity, pay now to avoid irreversible consequences, that it can incite panic. And again, that need to act very quickly. In fact, not even 20 minutes ago, I got one. So, yeah.
That's crazy. That's crazy. Definitely getting smarter out there on ways to bamboozle you and get you out of your hard-earned money. So do you guys feel like it's important for people to keep on, like, to keep aware of what those trends are? Because, like, how else would you know? What are some surefire signs that, like, you should be worried? Because I feel like my son kind of got into, he's like looking for a job, and who knows who you're applying to, right? Like you're on like Indeed or something like that, and you're just applying, like you're just literally clicking on whatever. And he got send us your social, send us your date of birth, and we're gonna get your paperwork ready, and you're hired.
Yeah, I think anything that's just upfront asking for that personal information, what we call PII, name, obviously you're going to have to provide a name if you're applying for a job. But some other piece of information may not be needed in the immediate, like your social, like your address, things like that. I think also we need to have in general, as a whole, as a, population, just a better understanding of what's normal in terms of, getting hired or someone showing interest in your resume, knowing that, you're not going to be contacted via text from a government or agency of some sort and then asking you to pay with gift cards. I mean, just sort of, understanding that is not normal business practices. And there are a lot of places to get information. Honestly, Google is one of the easiest ones. There's information there. There are websites there. Certainly, other governmental agencies like Federal Trade Commission has a lot of information. But none of this is a secret if you Google it. Even just in preparing for today, I did a little Googling just to see if there was anything new that I wasn't yet aware of. But yeah, there's a lot of information out there.
And I think part of that is like, being leery, right? Like there's people that just really want to trust that the world is so good that no one's out there trying to, like do these terrible things and scam them. Right. And my mother-in-law was one of those people, like, she's, an older woman on the computer, and she's looking around, and she's shopping online, and she's clicking on the things and clicking and click everywhere. And next thing you know, my father-in-law is like complaining because, like, I don't know, she entered her credit card somewhere, or she bought something that never came in the mail, or whatever. And so it's like, it's one thing if you're searching for it, right? Like you're searching because you're leery. And then there's these people out in the world that are just so trusting. And then, like I said, my son, he's a teenager, and we think that young people are so much more swifter than us older people because they have been raised with technology, and they're all these things. And they're not, they're still just kids. Like they're still young people that want to think that doing the things that they're doing is okay. And, they're getting caught up in their own little little scams. So that's really tough.
Yeah, I think there's, a certain amount of a healthy dose of skepticism when you receive these communications, and that could be really in any format: email, text, even a phone call. That we should have. I encourage people, if you don't recognize the number, don't answer. If you answer because you think it's your bank calling you and they tell you something, great, I will call you back. Don't continue with that phone call if it just seems just really odd or unusual, or they're suddenly asking you for things, even if you may feel that initially that's some sort of standard protocol on their part. But hang up, call using a number belongs to that financial institution or, that business.
Yeah. It's almost like a growing pains conversation that you have to have with your kids and parents and other people.
Yes. Yes. Again, in doing some additional research for today, it really runs the gamut as far as who's affected, from the very young adult to the older adult.
Yeah, for sure. So I think we talked about some of the people that are majorly targeted. What should people do if they think that they have been a victim of fraud?
Well, the first thing would be to contact their financial institution. And then depending on the type of fraud, because there are different types of fraud and they require different steps. But go to them for that guidance. Oftentimes there will be paperwork for that account holder to fill out. Usually some sort of affidavit. There may be times where an additional written narrative of what occurred may be needed. Again, depending on the type of fraud, we may ask that they file a police report. There are websites where they can also file online a report with either Federal Trade Commission if we're talking about ID theft. Other internet crimes, there's the IC3.gov website, which will take information related to online scams. And again, there may be other steps required, like opening a new account because the other one is compromised in some manner, placing freezes on credit reports. And all of that, does require some commitment to follow through. But it's important to take those steps because while, to some degree, all of our information is out there, especially out on the dark web, I don't think anyone is immune. And so taking those additional steps will prevent, further and future losses to that individual.
And we talked about this in our staff meeting for MCVRC on Monday. So I just wanted to turn to Blanche for a second because we talked about the different, it depends on the fraud, the type of fraud that it is and where it's initiated and how it affects you as to what your next steps are as far as reporting it. Blanche, can you speak to a little about why that's so different on the legal side?
Certainly. So your course of action is going to be different based on, as Veronica said, the origin of the fraud, whether you think that it's sort of something local or within your state or international. Obviously, local law enforcement are only going to be able to do so much when it comes to, a Nigerian fraud scheme. So that's when it's important to try to report it to federal authorities because a lot of times they're already aware of these different schemes. So you want to make them aware that you have been a victim of it. So it just depends on, the origin of the fraud and whether the person, that scammed you is known to you as well. So it's sort of nuanced it's specific based on the details for each instance.
So even the police department, they might not be involved in specific kinds of fraud, correct?
Correct. And they'll often refer you to any of those agencies that Veronica mentioned, Federal Trade Commission, FBI Internet Crime Complaint Center, Department of Justice, things like that, because their resources and their reach is limited in a lot of regards when it comes to international scams. And unfortunately, you're not always able to bring it to, the criminal courts here in Maryland. I was just going to note that the Maryland Attorney General's office also has an identity theft unit, as well as a consumer protection division, where these things can be reported to as well.
Yes, I've referred several people there over the years. They've been very helpful, very impressed with them. Yes.
Right.
So super interesting. So the local police department would help if the crime occurred locally. So if someone is scamming you, like I'm trying to think of this one lady that called me one time, and the scam was, I'll come and repair like this portion of your fence and mow your grass and do all these things, right? You pay me and I'll come on Saturday, right? And the lady that I spoke to, she was donating to our office, and I needed to mail her something or other. And she ends up telling me that this is what happened to her neighbor. Her neighbor didn't want to bring it to anybody's attention because she was an older woman. She didn't want people to think that she was bamboozled and that she was kind of like losing her facilities because she was, she was older and she didn't want to lose her independence. And so she never said anything, but it was really like, oh, I just wrote this check for $200. Like, it's okay. Like, I won't do that again. And that was just lesson learned. Like that was all it was. Whereas like if she reported it to the police because it's a local crime, it happened in her community, in her county, in her state, that she could have like, did you get a description of the vehicle? Did you get a description of the guy? Like they could do more with that at a local level because the crime happened locally, right?
Correct. And to your point, we actually have a lot of clients who have been, for lack of a better word, scammed by unlicensed contractors who they've retained their services to, do remodels on their homes, and then come to find out that they weren't licensed, and their work, shows the fact that they weren't licensed. And now you're out thousands of dollars for damage done to your home by someone who never had a contractor's license. And that is a criminal offense. And you're able to pursue those charges in Maryland criminal courts.
Yeah, and I will add that using that example, that individual did get scammed by that person, but that would not be a situation where a financial institution would be able to assist simply because the check itself was in fact written by that account owner. So had the check been stolen, let's say during the course of, them coming into the home to inspect something, and then it was forged, that would be something different.
Interesting. That makes sense. So it makes sense. Unfortunately, it makes sense. So they wrote the check willingly, like they knew they were writing the check, so it wasn't forgery. So the only way that the banking institution would be like if they cashed it, who cashed it, like that. But that would be police would have to get involved with kind of tracking that check.
Right. And that would be an instance where we would highly, highly recommend that they make that police report, because we have a name and that can be followed up on.
Right. And that's the plus of using a check, right? Versus, paying cash, which we know how that goes with cash. Like, you're never going to find that, did you have the serial number on that $100 bill? Mm-hmm. So that's definitely something more local. I'm just trying to give examples of like what that could look like for people. And I think that the home scams, like that is like, people set out to do these things, to do these services, to get half down, because half down is half down on work that's not going to be done anyway. Like oh, you give me half up front, and then I'll come back on this day, and then you just lost half. I mean, which is better than losing all of it, but it's still a way that people are kind of like taking advantage of people, entrusting in them, and with people that have their licensing, like their for Maryland, it's MHIC number. Mm-hmm. You can track them. The state tracks them. They've got that number, and it's a certified business and all that good stuff. So,
yeah. And then on the other side of that too, let's say that check was for $200, but that person alters it and changes it to $1,200. again, that would be a situation that we could work with that account holder and the other financial institution to recover those funds.
Okay, because it's still a form of forgery.
Mm-hmm. But again, I would still encourage them to make that police report because we have a name, we have an account that can be followed up, from the law enforcement side.
Right. So all you young people out there that don't own checkbooks, I'm just saying, your mom says, go get a checkbook because my daughter has a checkbook. She's, she really, I was like, get a checkbook so you can stop buying those money orders.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And a lot of younger generation, they're using the Cash App, the Venmo, where it's not really trackable. And even there's a huge fraud going on where someone you don't know is requesting money from you.
Good point. That is, I didn't even think of that. And it happens to me that one happens to me all the time. Veronica, I guess, gets the texts for, whatever it is, like tolls or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I get the Venmo request because I do a lot of rescue work with, animal rescue, and they'll change like the letter by like one letter or one dash. So it was like this, so Venmo always has like the dashes between words. That you'd be like Sandra dash Buckles dash, and it would be like instead of a dash, there was a period or a letter or something or other. And I remember I texted the people that had that rescue and was like, hey, did you guys ask me for money for surgery? Because it's totally something relatable to me. And they were like, no. So they immediately sent out like a social media message on their social media saying like, we didn't do this. And someone created a same image, same everything. You just have to really kind of pinpoint where that difference is.
Definitely. And even a lot of the QR codes that will say like, scan this for the directory, but it's actually someone's Cash App or Venmo. So it's very important that you're really paying attention to what you're scanning. Look at the area that you're in. Is this typically where a QR code would be? And paying attention to where you're sending the money, the tags and all of that.
Wow. Good to know. So be careful with all those apps. I hate them, but I'm not a money, like another place for my my card to be stored or bank account to be stored is just makes me anxious. But I get it. My kids are really, that's how they pay for things, and they take it in stores too. I'm like, not a fan. Any other of those? Wow, that was really caught me. You caught me, Kim. Any other little technology frauds that you guys are?
So just sort of tagging on to those fraudulent texts. Another one that we've seen where, again, it appears to be from your financial institution asking if you've made a large dollar purchase. And it's just for sake of example, $500 at the Walmart in, some city, Florida. And again, that's meant to incite a little bit of panic and get you to react right away. And then, we've seen where people respond N or no to that message, which then kicks off a phone call to them. That phone call, however, is the fraudster. Maybe they've spoofed the number of the financial institution, so it looks like it's coming from the financial institution. And they are, again, collecting information from you in an attempt to make it look like this is what we normally do to validate that you are the account holder we are trying to reach. In the course of that, they're asking, for, again, that personal information. They may have part of a social already or part of a date of birth, and they ask you to confirm the rest of it. And then at some point, they may say that you're going to receive a code to your phone, and that's going to help us further verify your identity. What's really happening is the fraudster is trying to get into someone's online banking. That code, that one-time passcode, is being sent to the legitimate account owner's phone. They're now giving it to the fraudster. The fraudster is now able to access that individual's online banking. Once that happens, everything is available to them, not just the money that's in there, but, full name, full address, social, date of birth. They can move money. They can open loans. It's basically a total account takeover situation.
So in those instances, so we talked about a couple different ones at this point, Lady Mow in the Grass or the MHIC number in Maryland, like those are things that you can call your local police department for. For the ones that are like out of state, that's fraud via an electronic communication. Who would they call for those types of things, like the ones that are like out of state?
Yeah, well, they still want to, contact us as soon as they realize that, maybe they've given too much information in that type of scenario. Beyond that, I would probably still guide them to the internet crime website, the ic3.gov, to file a complaint there. And a lot of times, depending on, there are some nuances with working with federal agencies in terms of, what they're interested in taking. They prefer this, these are not my rules. They prefer, larger groups of victims, larger dollar amounts. But ultimately it's up to them. And I guess, the, AUSA to determine what, what they're willing to pursue. But there are a variety of federal agencies that it can be reported to. Obviously, I cannot make any promises that it would be pursued, but that would include, things like FBI. And again, even looking at Federal Trade Commission website and seeing if there's information there on how to proceed for that specific type of fraud.
So I've got a couple more questions. What can people do about the, like the Venmo, like those types that you pay the wrong person? I think Venmo, like some of those companies you can contact, right, to try to get your.
Yeah. So that's another thing too, where yes, we have situations where someone has been scammed. The example we always use here is that, someone's trying to buy a puppy and you Venmo money or even PayPal the money. But again, if you've sent that money, we can't unfortunately assist with that because you you sent the money yourself. You were still scammed. And that's probably in a situation where you'd have to deal with that platform, again, PayPal, Venmo, any of those along those lines, to work on any recovery efforts. It's a different situation if your Venmo account, your PayPal account was compromised and it's someone else using your account without authorization to send funds.
Mm-hmm. So I know that some of the rescues that I've been involved with that have been, I guess their account has been like copied or like they're like impersonating, I guess they're impersonating the other rescue because they're trying to get the donations that are supposed to go towards, them or what have you. Like they're the ones that are kind of having to battle that, not the person who's accidentally given the money. Right. Mm-hmm. Which is a whole different fiasco because I feel like, just depending on where, anyway, that's a whole different fiasco. So, that's something that, organizations are having to kind of be vigilant about, like even us as organizations, like, as a nonprofit, for us to be like, oh, we have this Venmo, it's MCVRC. And then we actually don't, like, no, we don't have a Venmo. We don't do that. But if someone was going to like, oh yeah, send your donations to this, people could think that it was viable. So that is definitely tough.
Yeah. And anything that you are, paying for, let's say, again, exchanging money for some purchase on Facebook Marketplace, and they're asking you to send it friends and family when they are not friends and family, is going to restrict what you can do in terms of recovery if you are scammed, and should be a red flag. If you're sending money to someone you don't know, I would send it as if it were a business and not via friends and family options.
That's a lot. I mean, I think it's unfortunate because so many people are purchasing things online that don't get sent to them.
It
And
feels safe, and it doesn't always work out that way.
I mean, it's definitely, yeah, I think it the skepticism, like you said earlier, it really is like, is this
Mhm.
a site, you buy something, you're like, oh, did I really buy something? Will it ever come? I don't know.
Mhm.
So that's super tough. So I guess let's back into who people call. You said that it's ic3.gov, which I shared in the chat box. I think it probably needed like a www before that, but you guys at home will figure that out. You're on the web. You're on the interweb. That might need a www in front of it. Other scams, I guess I guess that's the big place. If it's not a local like scam or fraud, then IC3 is the place to go.
That's a place to report it. It's all online. Again, I don't know I don't know, I guess the stats on people getting further action. I can't
Right.
speak to that.
Correct.
But it is a place to make a report related to internet crimes. So again, I do encourage people to do that. There's also information on that website as well, that they may find, helpful in terms of next steps. So.
And then when would people go to the Attorney General's office? Blanche, you were saying it was like internet fraud.
They have an identity theft unit as well as a consumer protection division. So if it's something, well, if you're a Maryland resident, I would advise reporting it to them as well, in addition to all of the other agencies that Veronica has listed. I think that, it would behoove you to contact your local Attorney General's office, because they do have units set up to assist. And if there's nothing they can do, at least they can provide you with some information and on helping you prevent, further injury or victimization in the future.
Perfect. Okay, so what type of fraud and I guess scam cases can MCVRC help with?
So we mentioned the unlicensed contractor. I know that's not necessarily internet fraud or anything like that. We assist.
It's scammy though. It definitely is.
Oh yes, it's definitely scammy, and it's becoming. We're getting more and more cases like that. So it's becoming more prevalent in the state, it appears. Additionally, financial exploitation of vulnerable adults, including elders. And other types of vulnerable adults. I'm sure Veronica and Kimberly can speak to that. I know that they see a lot of that at their institution. We can assist with those. Generally, the state's attorney's office is going to have in your local jurisdiction, I represent Baltimore County, so they have an economic crimes unit specifically designated to handle cases like that. So if it is a situation where you know the offender, in the case of a caregiver who's taken advantage of a vulnerable adult, it can be reported obviously to local law enforcement, and that unit will be the one to prosecute the case if there's enough evidence to do so.
So in Baltimore, it's separate than the Department of Aging, or they'll.
So yes, so you would report it to Adult Protective Services, which is within the Department of Social Services for each county. But in terms of criminal prosecution of the individual, that would be handled by the Economic Crimes Unit for the state's attorney's office. And as I said, generally each office has a particular unit that handles those types of cases. MCVRC can assist in helping individuals navigate, identify exactly what they should do, next steps they should take after they've gone through all of the immediate steps that Veronica outlined, obviously reporting it to your financial institution. And we can assist you in reporting it to local law enforcement if it's not a situation where local law enforcement is going to be able to address it, referring you to the FBI, U.S. Attorney's Offices, Department of Justice, things like that. So we can just help you, try to assist you in identifying where to go and what steps to take next.
So are these also cases, Blanche, that you've actually done court appearances for, or is that at that point out of our hands?
So yes, I have represented victims of unlicensed contractors, as well as victims who were vulnerable adults who were financially exploited, who were by their caregivers. I actually have a case that is it's still ongoing. It's already been adjudicated. Restitution has been ordered, but she was a home health care aide and, began writing checks from her client's checkbook and ran up, I think it was approximately $20,000, in debt for him. And he's unfortunately passed, but it's something that his son is pursuing. And she was ordered to pay restitution. She was ordered to a period of jail time and supervised probation to follow. And as a condition of her probation, she's ordered to pay, a sum of restitution to the victim's family. So it's certainly something that can be pursued, and we can help you identify the right avenue to take in doing so.
Yeah, that's so sad. Those always just make me so sad when it comes to taking advantage of these, elderly people. And we just did the thing on the elderly community I think it was last month. Just trying to safeguard, your loved ones because they,
Because typically with the elderly community, they're building trust. So it's not something that just happens overnight. They're building a rapport with the elderly, and that's how they're able to take advantage.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, sometimes the offender is a family member of the elderly person as well. We've seen cases, where grandchildren and sometimes children have taken advantage of their parents without their knowledge. So.
Yeah, so unfortunate. But there's help out there. So if you find out that, something like that is going on, when we did the session last month, Care Patrol was on with us, and they were saying that a lot of people who have, aging family members, and they put them, they find like a senior facility for them to reside in, that, part of it is that they are kind of protected from people that want to take advantage of their kindness or their loneliness or their whatever other feelings that they're having. Some people are coming into homes and taking advantage of that. And that's just so extremely unfortunate. And then, you don't know that it's happening until it's $20,000 in or what have you. It's crazy that those things happen. It's just anyway, I don't know. I got a soft spot for that. It just makes me sad. Okay, so we can go to court with that. And then I guess for our Andrews friends, do all banking institutions have positions like yours that can help people through what they think is going on or guide them through like some fraud and scams and all those things?
Yes, I believe they do. Depending on the size of the institution, it may fall under another department other than just, something called like fraud department. And there may be pieces that are parsed out a little separately. Like a lot of times Visa, anything related to a card or credit card or debit card may be handled by a department that handles only Visa fraud. And so there is some, mix and match amongst financial institutions, but and some are more accessible than others in terms of, when you reach out to them, should you have a situation. But certainly the larger institutions will have it. I've never, as of yet, encountered at least a local credit union that didn't have a team to at least assist with that. So yes, I would say the majority do.
Okay, so that's definitely good to know. And I definitely think the sizing of the institution, it helps to expedite things when you're banking at a smaller institution because, it's a little bit more familiar and local versus the larger institutions that have kind of get lost in the sauce there. But, we know how that goes when it comes to the inner workings of the world. which is exactly what you're talking about with the IC3. Like you're like, if it's a couple $100, they might not, it might not be a top priority, but if it was had a couple commas in it, it definitely would be bumped to the top. So, just making sure that people kind of know where to go. And our at MCVRC, when you call our lines, they do go to our advocates, and our advocates can help kind of guide you based on where you live and how we can assist as well. We actually handle all of Maryland, and so we have advocates that handle each of the counties. Blanche has her own counterpart advocates as well, and they're working really hard to learn all the things and connect all the dots when it comes to how they can help victims of crime. And I think that in this instance, the scams and frauds definitely fall in line with that. So although our social media and a lot of our efforts do tend to be geared towards more violent crimes, like homicides and domestic violence, we definitely don't want for people at home to misunderstand and think that we are not also working in other areas to make sure that all rights are intact for people that are experiencing other crimes. Like Blanche said, she's gone to court, and we are constantly working on cases that are not violent crimes. Although, like I said, forward facing, I think our social media kind of shows that, just because of the amount of support that we try to give those victims that have suffered those losses or experienced those issues. So anyway, just wanted to add that as far as what MCVRC is working to do, and it really is a plethora of different topics, and keeping our attorneys like Blanche on her toes. I like to keep her on her toes, like hiding links to Lunch and Learns. Really like to do that. It's my favorite thing. Okay, so I think that's it. Was there anything else that you guys wanted to add before we closed out, or tips and any of that?
Yeah, I was going to say I can add a few tips, again, related to any unusual or unexpected communications. Don't panic, take a breath, think, does this make sense? And as I stated before, if you need to reach out to a particular business or a financial institution, make sure that it's a number that you know belongs to them, and that you are independently reaching out to them rather than continuing on with maybe a phone call that you've received. Definitely using strong passwords that encompass capital letters, lowercase letters, numbers, symbols, and not using those same passwords across multiple things like your banking, your email, your social media. Like, make sure you're using, different passwords. A lot of online banking platforms also have options where you can set alerts that you'll get some sort of notification about a transaction, which gives you pretty good real-time information. And also utilizing online banking to regularly check transactions and not waiting, for the statement to come in the mail, or even again through online banking. Keeping those usernames and passwords secure, and any documents that you may have to throw away, either shredding them. They also sell an ink roller that will camouflage name, address, and other personal information in any documents. And then the one thing that I always, always, always tell people, and a lot of people end up telling me they've never heard this before, is to use a separate email for anything related to banking and other financial matters. And then don't use that email to communicate with friends or family, or sign up for retailers who are telling you about their next holiday sale. Use it strictly for your financial matters, your banking. It's less likely to get spam. It's less likely to be spread out among a lot of different markets. And I, over the years, have found that to be helpful personally. So I do recommend that.
I like that. I've always had a junk email. I've always had one. It's so funny. So my actual email is a Hotmail. It just shows my age, right? I feel like that kind of My cousins make fun of me, my younger cousins. They're like, you still have a Hotmail? So my real email is a Hotmail. And then I have a Gmail. That's my junky one. And then my cousins think that's totally reversed because it shows my age. And I'm like, well, it just is what it is. So I appreciate that tip. Anything else from Blanche?
Oh, no, I was just going to say, I also have a Hotmail account. Yes, it definitely does age us, but there's nothing wrong with that. Veronica, I was going to ask, you were talking about passwords, and we're all getting a little older, so it's hard to remember passwords. Do you recommend those? I'm an Android user. Samsung Pass or the Google Password Manager. Do you recommend those for keeping track of passwords, or have you seen those be compromised as well?
That's a good question. I'm not an Android user, so I'm not terribly familiar.
I know Google has a password manager.
Yeah.
When you go to a site.
I actually, not that long ago, because I was getting overwhelmed with the number of passwords, just kind of Googled like best, password vault app or something along those lines. And I can't remember which one I ended up selecting, but that's been helpful in sort of managing passwords, just, again, on a personal level in terms of stores I may shop at and, other things that I may use online. So I know that those do exist. I would certainly not write them down and carry them around. I mean, if you're going to write them down, certainly keep them in a secure place. I know iPhone, for example, will help create passwords and also save it in your phone. There's other fraud, I guess, related to, phones being compromised, but, comparatively from what I read online, iPhone has less risk than other phones in terms of that happening. But like I said, I do use a password vault, again, just because there's so many that are required in just being able to live your life every day. Now, the one thing I did not do was I did not connect that password vault to any of my emails. So if my phone gets lost, all my passwords get lost too. But yeah, there needs to be a good way for everyone to sort of manage all those passwords, especially when, you want to commit to using different passwords across a variety.
That's what I was thinking when you said, oh yeah, use all these. I'm like, oh gosh, like
Right.
I already have issues at work where I'm like, okay, let me get out my little piece of paper, but totally old school on that.
And another thing I also, recommend when people are trying to come up with passwords that they'll remember is make it a sentence. I love the holidays 2025, and it's ILH, and so on, creating, the password with the letters of the first letter of all those words, and adding in some symbols and things like that. But yeah, something that, you're going to remember is helpful, but, there's only so many of those you can come up with on the spur of the moment as well. So, but I think that helps.
Good question, Blanche. Good question.
Thanks for that. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll see how we change all of the things that we do after this session, right? Like we'll be like, let me think about how I'm going to maneuver in this world. Okay, anything else?
Another tip that I do want to add is be careful what you share on your social media. Definitely, if there's a lot of scams out there, you can set your privacy settings where it's a limited amount of information is accessible to the public. But I know a friend recently, they had some raffle going on for their business page. And they said, share this post and you'll be entered into the drawing. A scammer actually went through and copied their exact Facebook page and started another raffle to get everybody to start sharing it. So the impersonation portion, but then also putting all of your information on social media. So if you're putting all your children's names, your animal names, sometimes people use those for their passwords. So if you're putting all of that on social media, it's easier for a scammer to figure out what your passwords are.
Agreed. Yes.
Good tip. I think that mine back before was watch those surveys that people are doing, like, oh, what's your favorite color and what's your this and where's your, what year were you born and what year did you graduate high school? Okay, those are all information gathering, right? Like just watch for those you think you're answering a few cute questions and really they're not so cute. They're not so cute later.
Yeah. A lot of people will share like the first car that they had. They'll show a picture,
the street,
and then that's one of your security questions.
Like, here's your elf name. Your elf name is the street you grew up on, and the holiday that is whatever closest to your birthday. Like, no, that's not what we're doing. So, beware of the cutesy things, because sometimes, especially right around the holidays, it's coming up. Okay, so last words, sharing your info and all that, and we're going to wrap up here and give you guys a few minutes back. I will start with Blanche.
So I would just piggyback off what Veronica said. If it appears to be too good to be true, it usually is. So just err on the side of caution. As I said, Maryland Crime Victims Resource Center can assist you in trying to identify which agencies you need to go to. In reporting the incident, we can be reached at 301-952-0063. And our website is MD Crime Victims, victims with an S.org.
Thanks, Blanche. I couldn't find my mouse. Veronica?
One last thing I will also add, and I do this in my other trainings as well, is I encourage people to take ownership of their own financial well-being, in that they are their own first line of defense, to be an active participant in that financial well-being. But by the same token, no one's immune to fraud. And if and when it happens, we can learn, we can guide you, and hopefully get you to the other side of that, as unscathed as possible. Again, I am with Andrews Federal Credit Union. Can be reached 301-702-5500 is our main line. The fraud department could, if you're a member of our credit union, can be reached at 301-909-2949. Not sure what else to add there. I was going to say something else and it's escaped me now.
All right, if you think of it. Kimberly.
Thank you again for having us. I'm with Andrews Federal Credit Union. I would say if it seems too good to be true, more than likely it is. There's no such thing as stupid questions. So if you feel as though you've become a victim of fraud, reach out to your financial institution. Andrews is a great resource. I also do want to invite anyone that's in the Fort Washington area. We are having a back to school bash this Saturday, August 23rd from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. That address is going to be at 9550 Livingston Road, Fort Washington, Maryland. We're going to be giving out free book bags and school supplies while supplies last.
Perfect. It is definitely back to school time.
It is.
Not ready. Don't know about you guys, but not ready. Also, I have one of those kids that only thinks that he needs a binder and some paper. So, like we did.
Yep.
Just getting up early. Not used to that yet. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Every month we try to do a topic that we think would be useful to the community. And thank you to our friends at Andrews Federal Credit Union for joining us. I think the small banking institutions are so lovely to really have someone that you can turn to and really kind of build a relationship with. So thank you guys for joining us today and just giving so much good information. Just real down-to-earth talk here, I think, is the best way to kind of communicate to people at home so that, it's not talking over someone's head. It's really just kind of relatable. And so I thank you guys for providing that environment for our friends at home. Next month, we're going to talk about kinship care. And this is a new term for me. Kinship care is when a loved one, usually grandma or an auntie or something like that, takes on the care of another human, usually, children. It can be someone that's elderly as well. So we're going to talk about that with an organization that I'm super excited to invite. So I feel like it's kind of going into this senior care. I did like the senior care giving last month, and then, the fraud this month, and we'll go into kinship care next month. So we'll see you guys then. And our lunch and learns are usually on the third Tuesday of the month from 12 to 1. We try to keep it really concise so we're not, kind of over expanding. Questions can always be asked in the chat box, and then recordings can be found on our Facebook and on our YouTube. So you can watch it at any time, or if you think that this information was helpful, you can always share it with another person in your life or share it on your social media. If you guys need me, you know where to find me. I'm also at Maryland Crime Victims Resource Center, and I hope to see you guys next month. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Megan.
Thank you.